1. Installation and adjustment. The user should first open the wrapping woven box and then fit the machine on the plain and tight floor. Adjust the machine to the water level through the adjusting bolts on the machine anchor. Open the panel box and connect the powered cable to the nodes denoted with A, B, and C respectively, and connect the yellow line to the N node. Then, connect the earthing according to the earthing node. Start the machine with the starting handle to check whether the machine runs properly. Open the key switch and the emergency stop switch. Push the green button and switch on all the switches and the temperature controller, then starting heating. Put the fan-shaped paper on the paper rack with the laminated film facing upward. Adjust the position of the paper feeding roller and the positioner roller. Keep the shaped paper tube on the cone-shaped die. The clearance between the paper tube bottom and the cone-shaped die bottom should be the depth of two finished products. Add Finimethyl silicone oil, and then adjust the height and oil level in the oil tank. Fit the paper with the laminated paper facing upward through the paper frame and the die frame. Turn the paper feeding direction for prompt feed. Adjust the distance between the upper shaft central points to make a clearance for two cup bottoms. Turn the swing of the lifting shaft for proper lift. Turn the eccentric wheel of the die for proper lift. Make the lifting shaft 6 to 8 mm deeper into the delivery ring if you feel. Adjust the position of the 8 delivery ring and the lifting shafts. Adjust the pressing bottom line on the center of the delivery ring from the components. Adjust the height of the pressing components and put the bottom paper on the position of finished products in the paper tube. Adjust the central position of the ejection piece to the tree. The paper should right cover the cone-shaped die and the bottom paper should not wrinkle. Loosen the 4 fastening bolts on the latch wheel and the connecting flange. Adjust the concentric points of the 8 cone-shaped die and the nearing heating seats, and the height. Adjust the bolt of the nearing wheel so that the pressure matches the nearing wheel. Adjust the concentric points of the flange furnace and the cone shape, and the height of the flange furnace. To the paper tube to the furnace with the paper tube and 9 mm higher than the flange plate. When the pressure roller reaches the lowest point, the flange plate will be pressed downward 2 to 3 mm. When the pressure roller reaches the lowest point, the upper flange scraper is 1 mm to the cone-shaped die. The second plate will reach 2 to 3 mm to the camp bottom. Adjust the concentric points of the preheating furnace and the cone-shaped die and the height. Adjust the concentric point of the bottom die turnover and the cone-shaped die and the height. Adjust the ejecting piece to the center of the tree, the height, so that the finished products can be properly transferred to the receiver. If the wheel does not move, then the swing of the finished products, so that the lifting time and ejecting time for the finished products match. By then, the adjustment is finished and the machine can be started. All the procedures are closely related, and the procedures cannot be misplaced. During production, tighten the bolts and the nuts regularly. 2. The normal operation of the unit includes A, B, and C separation. A. Sealing. B. Bottom cutting. C. Forming. 5 procedures. Sealing. The second plate takes the fan-shaped paper from the paper frame and puts it on the guiding rail. The feeder roller transfers the fan-shaped paper to the positioner roller. The left and the right hinge holds the fan-shaped paper to the die head tightly. The copper stick presses the welding, and the left and right hinge separates. The catcher draws the finished paper tube out. Bottom cutting. The bottom paper moves to the position. The lower scraper moves to the highest position and cuts the bottom paper. Then, it's put into the delivery ring by the lifting bearing. The ejected components sucks the bottom paper on the delivery ring to the lowest position and release the pressure. Forming. 5 procedures. 1. Preheating. 2. Bottom turnover. 3. Needling. 4. Flange. 5. Release. Preheating is to melt the laminated film on the forming paper tube bottom. Bottom turnover is to shape the forming paper tube bottom and melt the laminated film. Needling is to melt laminated film on the forming paper tube bottom and form the cup. Note, if the needling pressure is too low, the cup bottom will turn yellow or leak when the temperature is too low or too high. When flanging, the upper flange die is pressed down by the pressure roller and reaches the lower flange plate. At the same time, the central extension shaft and the lower die are pressed downwards. The lower washer will separate 1 to 1.5 mm. Release. The pressing panel will release the pressure when pressing downwards. The lower sucking panel intakes the pressure and puts the finished cup to the tree. 3. Failures and solutions. Cohesion failure. 1. The fan-shaped paper is not sucked or springs back. 2. The sealing cohesion is not tight enough. 3. The paper tube is not even. 4. The paper tube is not drawn out. If the fan-shaped paper is not sucked or springs back, so the problem is as follows. When the sucking plate reaches the fan-shaped paper, turn the sucking cylinders to the central position. Lower the sucking plate to 15 mm to the lower panel, and turn the sucking release camshaft to release the pressure in the control valve. When the fan-shaped paper is sucked to the guiding rail and transferred to the positioner roller by the delivery roller, the fan-shaped paper will tightly held on the die head with right handle faster than the left one. If the sealing cohesion is not tight enough, it's closely related to the weight, size, and cohesive. temperature of the laminated paper by different suppliers. According to the forming effects of the paper tube, adjust the temperature through the temperature controller. Note, the conhesion is not desirable if the temperature is too low, resulting in the cup spring back. The paper will turn yellow if the temperature is too high, or the paper and the PE film separates. If the paper tube is not evenly glued, adjust the position of the paper feeder roller and the positioner roller. If the spring ejector breaks, the problems may also occur. Please change with new ones. The distance between ejection piece and the die head is about 4 to 5 millimeters. If the paper tube is not drawn out, the temperature is so high that the laminated film sticks on the die head after melting, or too much water is sprayed on the fan-shaped paper so that the paper edgeworks and fails to be drawn out. Bottom failure. 1. The bottom paper deviates. 2. One side is wider than the other side when flanged. 3. It turns around when pressed into the paper tube. Adjust the pressure bolts on the left and the right supporting plates or the adjusting roller if the bottom paper deviates. If one side is wider than the other side when flanging, please solve the problems as follows. If the cutting roller die does not cut the paper entirely and the lifting axis ejected the cup bottom, in this case, slightly turn the lift axis counterclockwise or turn the eccentric wheel clockwise slightly. Note, observe when the bottom paper stops. Choose one to adjust. Other cause might be the overwear or the lower and upper die. In this case, sharpen the scraper or change with new ones. It turns around when pressed into the paper tube. The second plates don't hold the cup bottom or in an overlong time. The cup bottom is pulled up when it reaches position. In this case, when the ejected components reach the delivery ring, turn the second cylinder to the central position. When the ejected components are pressed to 15 mm to the cup bottom, turn the release camshaft to release the pressure in the control valve. Forming failure. 1. Paper feeding roller and the catcher roller stays in proper position. 2. One side is wider than the other after downward overturn. 3. The cup bottom contacts improperly with leakage after nearing forming. 4. One side is deeper than the other side is thread after nearing forming. 5. The flanged edge release or the cup is not flanged properly. 6. The cup wrinkles. 7. The finished cups fail to leave the line. If the paper feeding roller and the catcher roller stays in proper position, so the problem is as follows. When the hinge starts moving, turn the paper feeder roller swing counterclockwise so that the paper feeder roller keeps 8 to 10 mm to the final point. When the welding copper stick separates 2 to 3 mm, the paper pick-up roller will catch the finished paper tube. If one side is wider than the other after downward overturn, or the cup bottom overturns too much or less, so the problem is as follows. Adjust the concentric point of the bottom turnover and the cone-shaped die, and the turnover die height. Note, the failure is directly related to the fact that if the forming paper tube is too large or too small. If in this case, Adjust the position of the paper feeder roller and the positioner roller at the sealing section. If one side is deeper than the other side, it is thread after nearing forming. Please solve the problems as follows. Adjust the concentric point of the nearing furnace and the cone-shaped die. If the inner bearing or the nearing wheel breaks, change with a new one. If the cup bottom contacts improperly with leakage after nearing forming, solve the problem as follows. The failure usually is caused by improper temperature, improper pressure of the nearing wheel, or the improper height of the nearing wheel. Turn the nearing wheel clockwise to lower the height. Adjust the M12 hairstring bolts directly under the nearing wheel, loosen the nut, and turn the bolts. If clockwise, you are increasing the pressure. If counterclockwise, you are decreasing the pressure. Adjust the bolts slightly to avoid too much pressure difference. Push the corresponding button on the temperature controller to adjust the temperature. If the flange edge release of the cup is not flanged properly, please solve the problem as follows. If the central extension bearing spring pressure is too low, or the pressing roller may overpress, turn the nearing furnace counterclockwise or put a washer between the extension bearing of the washer. In other cases, if the cup is not flanged properly, the flange pressing roller may not work properly. Adjust the height of the flange pressing roller. If it's due to the diameter of the forming paper tube is too small, please adjust the position of the paper feeder roller and the positioner roller. If the cup wrinkles, please solve the problem as follows. Usually, if the flange pressing roller press is too much, the problem will occur. Adjust the height of the flange pressing roller. If finished silicone oil is not properly added, the problem may also occur. In this case, add the finished silicone oil to the oil tank. If the flange panel lower springs is over tight, change with 4 new ones with smaller tension. If the cone-shaped die and the flange lower die are not in central position, adjust the central position of the flange furnace and the cone-shaped die. The above 4 may cause the problem of 4 wrinkle or release. If the finished cups fail to leave the line, solve the problem as follows. Adjust the pressing roller to the lowest point. The upper flange die scraper is 1 mm to the cone-shaped die. A second plate is 3 to 5 mm to the cup bottom. Adjust the release cylinder. Key failure. If the 3 wheel stays in the wrong position, solve the problem as follows. Turn the machine with a handle to make the nearing wheel bearing stays at the central position of the auxiliary camshaft. Adjust the central position of the medium-sized and the small wheel. The swing of the finished products. Turn the handle counterclockwise after the fed components is going to leave. When the 3 wheels stop, the fed nylon components will be lowered to the delivery ring at the height of 60 mm. Then tighten and finish the product swing bolts. 4. Electrical failures and solutions. 1. Heating failure. Check whether the circuit break trips, the contact works properly, the connecting nodes contact properly, and the heating pipe keeps in good condition. If necessary, please change with new components accordingly. 2. Improper display of the temperature. Change with new thermal coupling and heating pipe. 3. Temperature controller failure. The thermal coupling and heating pipe work properly, but the temperature controller fails. Change with new temperature controller. The unit is highly automated. Therefore, we are unable to list all the failures. If necessary, please read through the schematic wiring diagram. 5. Maintenance. The maintenance includes cleaning, lubricating, tightening and loosening the tension of the transmission chain, and tightening the bolts. Please carry out the maintenance according to the user manual. The user should grasp the operating techniques from the application, and your suggestions and opinions are welcome. 6. The procedures are changing the die with same bottom and cone. Losing the 4 spring column bolts on the flanged panel, remove the flanged panel and the spring column. Losing the upper cover bolts, remove the upper cover. Losing the lower die connecting bolts on the flanged panel, and remove the lower die on the flanged panel. Losing 8 central bolts for connecting the flange on the large wheel, and change the 8 groups of forming die. Install the new flanged lower die, upper cover, flanged panel, and 4 spring column bolts. 7. The procedures for changing the die with different bottom and cone. Losing the forming die head and the beam connecting bolts, remove the forming die head. Install the forming die head when the distance between the forming die head bottom and the panel is within 4 to 5 mm. Remove the central panel. Remove the left and right welded hinge axes, and install the 2 unwelded hinge axes. The right hinge should be faster than the left one by 1 to 1.5 mm. Weld the hinge and the hinge axis. When the distance between the hinge and the hinge roller is within 1.5 to 2 mm, weld the hinge and the hinge ring. Change the 8 nylon trays on the medium-sized wheel. Change the 2 nylon pieces. And change the finished receiver. Remove the small wheel and loosen the die-cut connecting roller and the roller bolts. Change the paper release plate and upper the lower die cut, and install accordingly. The lower die cut will enter the upper die when you jaw upward and moving plate. Tighten the 2 bolts on the upper die, loosen the moving plate and push it slightly, respected 3 to 4 times. Then the lower die cut will enter the upper die cut. Tighten the 4 bolts on the upper die cut. Change the upper piece of the lifting shaft, the 8 delivery rings on the small wheel, and the nylon rejected parts. Change the preheating cap, the turnover die, nearing heating seat, and the nearing wheel. Some parts should be changed to the same as die with same bottom and cone.